Welcome back to the Faith and Work Hour with your host Tony. Got a very special guest. We got my wife LATESHA KNIGHT coming in. She's going to talk about mental health awareness. I think it's suicide month from my understanding. So you can come on down and give yourself introduce to the audience to who you are and exactly what you do. But before we do that, I always give a quote of the day. This quote is, "Not everyone staring at you is admiring you. Some are amazed you survived the traps they set for you." So that's something we all want to pay attention to. So Miss LATESHA Knight, we want to go ahead and turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, thank you. My name is LATESHA Knight. I've worked in the mental health field since 2013. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I enjoy helping others.
Short, sweet, and to the point. With our group, mental health, physical and mental health sustainability is a big thing that we do. Like I said, we don't actually deal with people with mental health, but we'll put you in a position and put you in contact with those who do. I know a lot of people got a lot of questions about this, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump on the gun off the top. Mental health is an illness that can come in multiple different forms. A lot of people want to know, how do you determine if somebody has mental health? What are the signs that they give you, or what are the signs that you see? Because obviously you work with people who deal in the mental health field. So what are some of the signs that you would look for in somebody who is showing signs of any kind of mental illness?
Okay, so if you have a mental illness, it's gonna impair you. Your behaviors, maybe at home, at work, will change. And in order to have a mental illness diagnosis, it has to happen for a certain period of time.
Okay, but they do have people who hide it for years. How are you able to locate and decipher those who hide it?
There are some people who hide it for years, and I like to call it suffer in silence. But eventually, although you can hide it, there are ways your behaviors will let others know that there's something wrong.
Give us a couple of examples of that behavior.
Well, life happens to all of us. And sometimes you may become explosive, like it may affect your mood, it may affect your appetite, it may affect different things. So you will know when something is kind of off.
How do you determine mental illness from depression? Because depression can have some of the same side effects. It has some of the same symptoms of not eating or overeating. What is one of the key things that differentiates mental illness from depression?
Okay, I want to back up first. Before you're ever given a mental illness diagnosis, you have to be first, let's rule out health conditions. Because sometimes if you have a health condition such as thyroid disease or anything like that, they can look a lot like depression. But depression is a mental illness, but a mental illness is a health condition just like diabetes and high blood pressure and anything like that. There's just been a stigma on mental illness. That's why people are afraid to get the help that they need.
What is some kind of, I've had a few people ask me this. What are some of the ways that you can help somebody who has a mental illness?
Some of the ways that you can help them is by, first of all, letting them know that there's help available. They can follow up with their local mental health agency, or they can follow up with their healthcare provider to make sure that they get the help that they need. And let them know that it's confidential.
Okay. Now, I would imagine that those particular people that you're referring to, you let them know that it's confidential or has a degree of understanding. But what happens to the ones with mental health that doesn't have that understanding? How do you get through to them? Or do they have to have like somebody that's over them, like a guardian, or somebody who represents them And I know I'm throwing a lot at you real quick. How do you know that the person that's over them has their best interest in mind? Because some people put people in institutions because they don't want to be bothered with them.
That's true.
So how do you determine? Because if you're around that all the time, then I assume you get an instinct of who's legit and who's not. Well, how do you? What are one or two ways that you decipher who is have the patient's best interest in mind?
Well, first off, what I like to always do is I speak with the patient separately. In spite of who recommended them or not, I speak with them separately. And I allow them to talk to me to give me their point of view. And then I may speak to the guardian or whoever that's over them and get their point of view. But the person, the patient, or the consumer is the person that I'm serving. And that's who I have best interest at heart. So if that person tells me this person doesn't have my best interest at heart, then I'm advocating for them to do what I need to do.
Okay, and the follow-up question right behind that one. One of them not mentally able to answer that question. Because you have some people that are so far, I hate to say this, they so far gone, they can't answer those questions. That's why they have a guardian or somebody that has a, power of attorney over them. So once you come across that case and you have to go through the guardian itself, how do you determine if the guardian has that patience when the patient can't answer?
Well, I go by behaviors.
Okay.
I watch the room, of when that person speaks, when the guardian speaks, how they react, and I kind of go from there.
And you said this is Suicide Month?
Suicide Prevention Month.
Okay, tell us a little bit about what that consists of and how do you and your constituents that you work with, what do y'all do to help? What kind of things do you have in place for this month?
Well, Suicide Prevention Month has been set up to help bring awareness to suicide and make sure that their resources are available. The suicide hotline number recently changed to 988. That's the number that you would dial if you're in a crisis or if you know someone else is in a crisis. This is also the month that we walk for people who have lost their lives due to suicide. And so that's how we try to bring awareness.
How many cases of people, because you got some people that give you the threat of suicide, but they really doing it for attention. Then you got some of them that actually are suicidal. How do you differentiate that? How do you know which is which, and if this is lying, or is it some kind of behavior they do, or is it? It's not something. I'm assuming it's something that's ongoing, something that is you ain't gonna. I assume you're not gonna be able to figure that out the first day. So when you see these people over and over and over again, how do you be able to determine which is legit and which is not?
Okay, I take each threat seriously, and I treat them all seriously.
Okay. So no matter if it's fake or not, you treat both the same way.
Because I've known some cases where the intent was there, but not to succeed, but it happened. So each threat is taken seriously. So,
in your experience, when you say the threat is there, but it's not the intent, what do? They just cut themselves somewhere that they know they wouldn't get hurt at. So you ain't gotta. We don't need to know names. But what are some of the cases that you've seen in which somebody threatened to do suicide, but just did it to draw attention? Because I'm assuming that's what they're doing. And why do they do that? Is it just to draw attention, or is it another reason for it?
Well, life happens to all of us, and sometimes people have trouble coping with life stressors. And they feel that that's their only way out, which we know that's not their only way out. But due to that, that's what they feel at that moment. And sometimes that's the threat that is made. So with every threat that's made, we just take them all seriously and treat them all the same.
Okay. And in some cases, as far as, and I'm gonna tell you, I wasn't aware this was Suicide Month, so
Okay.
I gotta get up on top of some of the things that I should have read on that at some point. But how many incidents do you see this month? Because if it's just, why do they designate September as Suicide Month?
That I'm not for sure.
I'm just curious. Why? But do y'all handle? But you deal with cases year round like this, just not this month, correct?
I deal with cases daily.
Daily, okay. So this is just one month to bring attention to it, but this is not the only month that you have to deal with this kind of.
Right.
Okay. So saying that, what is some of the other things that y'all do?
I do several things such as interventions. I provide therapy. I provide group therapy. I provide family therapy if needed to provide interventions for all of us.
What is the group therapy? What does that consist of?
Group therapy consists of several different people at one time. We have a particular topic that we're going over, and different ones are able to kind of chime in, give their input, and kind of provide feedback to one another.
So family therapy would be basically what it says, family therapy.
That consists of the family unit.
Okay. Have you ever come across a case where you had multiple people in the family that had like depression, they showed signs of some kind of mental illness, and if you did, how do you deal with, because I know you say you deal with it individually, but when it's in a family environment, how do you deal with that? Do you just put them together, or do you still deal with them separately?
Well, it all depends, because I can have a patient that I'm working with individually, but if they say there's some things within the family unit that need to be corrected, if the family agrees, we all pull the family in and do like a family session.
Has that ever went wrong?
What?
Well, just speaking reality. Everything is, when you do it, everything is not going to be picture perfect like it's drawn up to.
It's not.
It's always going to be some situations that's going to kind of go sideways in some way.
Right.
And to be in that field, I would imagine you have to have a degree of patience to not, because I'm sure it's easy to go sideways with the situation.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things, because I know you mentioned some things you wanted to go over. What are some of the things you wanted to go over?
Well, with mental illness, like I said before, it's a health condition, just like diabetes and everything else, and it should be treated as such. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but it can also be hereditary, meaning that if there's a family history of it, there's a chance that it could hit you or hit somebody in your family, and there's nothing that you can really do about it but treat it when you recognize it. And mental health is just as important as your physical health.
What is the treatment process? What actually goes into that?
When it comes to treatment, that can consist of you following up with a therapist, seeing a therapist regularly. If therapy is not enough, if therapy alone is not working, then there's medications. And then you can do your therapy and your medications. And research has proven that therapy and medicines work well together. If you need medicines, if it's needed.
How do y'all monitor if a person is taking their medicine? If they come in and they kind of erratic, that kind of give you a sign they're not taking it? And if that's the case, how do you ensure that they will take it when they leave?
We don't know.
So basically, if they got a guardian or somebody's got a power of attorney, it's up to them to make sure they take their medicine. Can they be held accountable if they are over the patient and they do not make sure they take their medicine, and if they hurt themselves because of that? Is there any actions that y'all can do? Mm-hmm. What are some of the actions, without going into any personal detail, what are some of the actions that y'all can do?
Well, I'll go back and answer your first question. One way to detect whether or not a person is taking their medicines is by lab. That's one way, by lab. And if the person is a child or whatever, they have a guardian who's over them and they're supposed to make sure they take their medicines and they don't, and it's affecting other parts of their life, then at that point we can contact DHR. Because at that point you're impeding treatment.
Okay, well, and you said that was a number. Is it like that? Is that a hotline?
It is. It's a 988. It's a crisis line that you can call if you are in a crisis or if somebody else is in a crisis, and it'll connect you to a licensed professional or somebody on the other end that can kind of help link you where you need to be.
Now, is that just for Alabama or that's for anywhere?
That's anywhere right now.
And it's just 988. That's it.
988. You can call or text it.
Okay.
It's 988 right now.
So I know that that's not all you have to deal with while you're working. So is there any more PowerPoints or anything else you want to bring in? Because you can talk about mental health. Mental illness has many phases.
It does.
And give us an example of some of the things you done had to encounter or some of your PowerPoints.
I've encountered many things in this field, but what I do know is that a lot of times the stigma of shame, the stigma of embarrassment causes a lot of people not to get the help and the treatment that they need. Over half of the people in the United States, according to research, has a mental illness and it goes untreated. And that's just what it is. I will say that COVID brought out some mental illnesses or problems with people. It did.
Now,
when you begin.
It's interesting. I've heard that before. When you say COVID brought out some of the mental illness, is it because they were shot up, or they couldn't leave, and that really amplified it? It amplified something that was already there, or was there another reason that COVID was one of the main catalysts of bringing out some of the mental illness?
Well, it altered the way that you live. It altered what you could do, where you could go, and some people haven't returned to work since COVID.
Why would that? Okay, why would it altering where you can go bring out mental illness? What would be the cause of that?
Because when COVID first started, some people had to stay home. And a lot of times people are not accustomed to staying home and not being able to go anywhere, not being able to convene with their family for holidays and different things like that. So some individuals had an onset of a mental illness at that particular time.
So it's like being in a cage where you can't go anywhere and you are isolated from everybody else. Even though you could talk to them on the phone, but it's the visual part that really shook them.
Yeah.
Because they used to socializing with them, and then when you can't socialize with them, is it like they draw up, they isolate themselves now, or they go into like a denial stage or something?
Well, your life as you once knew it changed.
Why did it affect everybody though? Because some people, for instance, I'll put you as me an example. It really didn't affect me because I drive trucks.
Yeah.
So I'm isolated most of the time anyway. So it didn't really affect me. And when I come in, I don't really talk to a lot of people anyway. But somebody that would work in like your field, who sees everybody every day, did you have any employees that you used to work with? Did any of them ever succumb to anything like that? I know they treat people who do, but you can sometimes get caught in the same thing you treat a lot of times.
Well, as a therapist, we're supposed to have our own therapist.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
In order for us to be present for someone else, to make sure we take care of them, we're supposed to have our own therapist.
What would be the purpose? Is because y'all get stressed out too, and you might need somebody to talk to?
Right. Because we have to be present, and we have to take care of the patient, the consumer, or whatever, the agency calls them. We have to take care of them. So we have to make sure that we're mentally healthy. We're physically healthy to be present for somebody else. So in order to be a good therapist, we have to have our own therapist and have somebody that we can talk to as well.
Have you ever had an encounter with when somebody had their own therapist and the therapist was like, something looks like it's wrong with you. You're not handling this situation. Like, if that ever occurred that somebody had to be taken off a case because they didn't feel like they could handle that?
Yes, that happens, and sometimes we call that compassionate fatigue, because some things can hit close to home, and some things may be too much for that person to deal with at that moment.
Because they also say that sometimes you can get too close to that patient because of the familiar, because their stories are so familiar and so close to your lifestyle and some of the things you went through. Could you get too close to them?
Well, that's when you maintain your professionalism, and we call that countertransference.
Okay.
And that's something that we don't want to do, project our stuff off onto somebody else. Meaning if a patient comes in and they look like somebody that I knew or somebody that I lost, and they remind me of that person, I can't project that off onto that person. I still got to do my job and do what I need to do. If I feel that it's too much for me, then I need to staff it and pass it on, because it's not fair to that person that I can't give them what they need. That means I got some stuff I got to deal with.
What are some of the, and we done talked about all the negative sides of mental health, and what are some of the things that delights you? Because I know it's delightful when you help somebody who's struggling, and you see them improving, and you see them progressing in a positive direction. What are some of the positive things that comes out of what y'all do? And I know the positive is probably going to outweigh some of the negative stuff. But give us a couple of examples of some of the things that you help somebody with, and then they showed appreciation for that help. And I'm sure every one of y'all at one point in time had that happen. Give us a little insight on how that makes you feel, and you ain't got to necessarily say what they did, but just how does it make you feel when you see them come back and they doing way better than they did before they came in there?
That's my greatest joy of giving back. Whenever I see that I was able to promote change, the person thrives, they do well, that's my greatest joy. I mean, it gives me great insight to see somebody progress and do well.
And sometimes it ain't the big glamorous gifts. It may be a drawing. It may be a thank you. I know you've received some of those. Talk about that.
Yeah, I've received several drawings when I work with children. They would come and draw things on my board. You're the best mental health teacher. I've got pictures. I've received cards of thank you. And those nice things of gratitude, it goes a long way.
Does it make you wonder sometimes when you see kids come in there, and a lot of them, and when we say mental illness can be, and it come in different fashions and forms, where you can get physically abused, and that can trigger it. It can isolate you from people. How does that really affect y'all when you see a child come in there that's been mentally or physically abused, and it seemed like the person that was over them didn't care about them, didn't just treat them badly? I know that steps y'all can take to do that, but just we want to get a viewing audience, a kind of an insight. Well, what goes through y'all head? I know anger has to be one. Anger triggers. Nobody wants to see a child get hurt and mistreated. So what are some of the emotions that y'all have to deal with? Because y'all on the emotional roller coaster up. You're happy this time. You're angry. You kind of even keel. Give us a little insight on your emotional roller coaster that y'all going
to see it.
Yeah.
Well, since we're trained clinicians, of course, whenever you see that, you're disappointed and you're upset about what you see. But at that particular point, like, my emotions of what I feel, I'm not going to display them, to the kid. But if we do have a case of physical abuse, we report it and kind of go from there.
Have you ever had a situation that was so bad that you had to go and talk to somebody else because of the circumstances?
There was a case. There has been a case to where I may have taken a couple of days off of work because of it. Yeah.
So we know the job is mentally draining. Some jobs are more physical, some jobs are more mental, and we know the mental strain can be worse than the physical strain a lot of times.
Yeah.
How do you put that to the side when you don't have the option to take a day off?
We're just trying to do so.
That's pretty difficult, dude, to hide emotions.
I just make sure I practice my self-care, and sometimes just the ride home from work is therapeutic for me. Just taking a break from it.
Do y'all ever like treat the kids that come in, and I know some adults too, you know, what do y'all do to show support for them? And I know you do. If you're in any kind of therapy, you have to show support for the clients that you deal with. So what some of the things that y'all do to positive reinforce them to keep going even when they won't stop and quit and just say it ain't worth it no more, or I'm tired, I'm not getting any better, but you see progress. Mm-hmm. So what do you do to keep them motivated to keep going?
You want to, first of all, let them know that they can do it, give them positive affirmations, encourage them to believe in themselves. You can do it, keep moving, you got this. You know, encourage them to do that until they start to believe it. Because sometimes people can be beat down so far, they can't see that. They can't see what you see. You can see progress in me, but, you know, I might not see it.
You know, I thought about that when I see a lot of stuff on TikTok, a lot of stuff on Facebook, and another form of mental, they can call a mental illness, is being bullied. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure y'all have had people who've been bullied, and if you can succumb to that. Mm-hmm. That's another, and the reason I said that is because bullying is one of the top things of kids now, that when they get bullied, they commit suicide. The thing about that is, and you can elaborate on this a little bit more better than I can, is they hide it. They don't tell you until it's too late. What are some of the signs you can catch of bullying, that you can catch those before it gets to the point of no return, as I say?
Well, a lot of times the teachers are the eyes in the classroom, and they can bring like bullying awareness, have like bullying awareness programs there at the school to let the children know it's okay to tell somebody if you're being bullied, because a lot of times they're afraid to do so. Yeah. They're afraid to come forward. But the teachers are the eyes in the classroom. And a lot of times if they see something a little off with one of the kids, they'll let the administrator know. Okay, and if there's a therapist on board, they let the therapist know. And there has been some classrooms I've gone in and just observed, and just watched a particular kid, jotted down what they did, you know, how they moved, they kind of went from there.
So what happens if the school doesn't have, and I'm sure they should have a therapist, what happens if they don't have anybody there? Do they contact you or your organization, or do they contact any organization to get somebody there?
Well, if a school doesn't have a therapist on hand, which most of them have what they call school-based therapists, which is what I used to do prior to going to my other job. Mm-hmm. But if a therapist is not on site, they can contact their local mental health agency to get a therapist there to assess the child.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say that we didn't go over? That you hit all the points that you wanted to make? Because mental illness and suicide is a real thing, and it should not be taken lightly. We're losing too many young kids about that. So if there's anything else you want to bring up that we didn't go over?
Well, I just like to say that mental health is very important, and it's not to be taken lightly. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health, and it's important to take care of yourself. Bring awareness and take care of one another, and get the help that you need. It's confidential. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I feel that you should be ashamed if you don't get the help that you need, and it's available there for you.
And what's that number again that they can contact if they get into the point where they can no longer think they can physically, mentally, or unable to do it? So we want to get that number out one more time to,
988 is the number that you can call if you're in a crisis. You can call that number or text that number.
You can call or text 988 if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling stressed out, depression, because depression can lead to suicide also.
Yeah.
And anxiety can lead to anxiety, which can lead to suicide. And anxiety is one of the silent killer, because they walk around normal. You will never know it until it's too late. Because I've read a lot of stories. Because I didn't think anxiety was a real thing until I met some people who actually suffered from it.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know a lot about it, but I know it's real, and I know it's serious. So
it's serious, and anxiety can keep you stagnated, because on the other side of anxiety is fear. You know, there's excessive worry, there's excessive fear over certain things, and it can keep you stagnated.
Okay, well, we done learned something today, then, with people. Well, this is Anthony Knight once again with the Faith and Work Hour with a special guest, LATESHA Knight, who gave us a lot of information that I didn't know, and I'm sure a lot of more didn't know, which was very useful. But don't forget, 988. If you're overwhelmed, depressed, have anxiety, feeling anything of suicide, call 988, get help. And as Ms. Knight said, it is confidential, so nobody else will know about it. But it's better to get it before it gets to the point where you no longer want it. I'm gonna let you have the last words. Anything else that you want to add to it?
I think I covered it all.
Okay, we cut it off. Well, once again, we appreciate everybody for tuning in to the Faith and Work Hour. We'll be back next week as usual, same time, same place. Once again, I thank my guest LATESHA Knight, which is also my wife, even though she don't claim it all the time, but it's true. And we will talk to you next week. Two fingers. Peace out.